Here's the equation nobody teaches. Strategy times discipline equals results. Not strategy plus discipline, times. Which means if your discipline is 0, your results are 0, regardless of how good your strategy is. 10 times 0 is 0. 100 times 0 is 0. You can have the best edge in the world, but if you don't execute it, it's worthless. And here's the brutal part. Most traders spend 90% of their energy optimizing strategy and 10% on discipline. They're working on the wrong variable, because strategy has diminishing returns. Going from a 60% win rate to 65% is hard and doesn't matter much, but going from 50% discipline to 100% discipline, that's the difference between losing and winning. Yet everyone's tweaking indicators while their discipline is broken. You're polishing the car while the engine's on fire. You're trapped in a cycle. You find a strategy. You test it. It works. You start trading it live. And for a while, it keeps working until it doesn't. Not because the strategy stopped working, but because you stopped working the strategy. You moved stops. You sized up after wins. You skipped signals after losses. You let emotion override system. And when the results turned negative, you blamed the strategy. So you went looking for a new one, better indicators, more backtesting, tighter parameters, and you found one, and the cycle repeated. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You don't have a strategy problem, you have a discipline problem. And no amount of strategy optimization will fix a discipline deficit. You can have the most sophisticated edge in the world, but if you can't execute it consistently when it's uncomfortable, boring, or terrifying, it's useless. The core pain we're addressing is this. You think you need to find the right system, the one that feels so good to trade that discipline becomes automatic. But that system doesn't exist. Every system has losing streaks. Every edge has periods where it doesn't work. Every strategy requires you to do things that feel wrong in the moment. And if you're waiting for a strategy that never asks you to trade against your feelings, you're waiting for something that can't exist in reality. What makes this different is we're not going to tell you discipline is about willpower or being tough. That's useless advice. Discipline in trading is about building systems that make execution easier than deviation. It's about understanding why you break your rules, not judging yourself for it, and redesigning your environment so the right behavior becomes automatic. It's structural, not moral. The myth we're busting is that better strategy leads to better results. It doesn't. Better execution of average strategy leads to better results than average execution of better strategy. Always. Because trading is a game of consistency over time, not brilliance in moments. And consistency is a discipline problem, not a strategy problem. The reframe is this. Your strategy is probably fine, your discipline is broken, and once you accept that, once you stop searching for the perfect system and start building the habits that allow you to execute imperfect systems perfectly, everything changes. Imagine two identical twins. Both learn to trade from the same mentor. Both get the exact same strategy. A simple moving average crossover system with defined entries, stops, and targets. Nothing fancy. Tested over 5 years. Profitable, but not spectacular. 55% win rate, 2-to-1 reward risk, the kind of system most traders would dismiss as too basic. Twin A takes the system and trades it exactly as taught. Every signal, every stop, every target. No exceptions, no improvements, no discretion. Just mechanical execution. For the first 2 months, nothing special happens. Some wins, some losses. Slightly up, then month 3 hits, and a winning streak. Account up 30%. Twin A doesn't change anything. Month 4, losing streak. Account gives back 15%. Twin A still doesn't change anything. 12 months later, Twin A is up 90%. Not because the system is magic, because the compounding of consistent execution over sufficient sample size allowed the edge to express itself. Twin B takes the same system and immediately starts optimizing, adds an RSI filter, skips trades after 2 losses, sizes up after 2 wins, takes profits early when up more than expected, holds losers longer when they're close to coming back. Each deviation seems logical in isolation, but cumulatively, they destroy the edge. Month 3. Twin B has the same winning streak as Twin A, but sizes up massively and gives it all back in week 4. Month 6. Twin B abandons the system entirely. It doesn't work, they say. 12 months later, Twin B is down 40% and searching for a new strategy. Same genes, same teacher, same system, opposite results. Not because one had a better strategy, because one had discipline and the other had interference. Twin A won because they got out of their own way. Twin B lost because they couldn't stop tinkering, optimizing, second-guessing. The strategy worked the entire time. Twin B just never let it. And I want you to really understand what happened here. Twin B wasn't stupid. They weren't reckless. Every deviation they made seemed rational in the moment. Adding the RSI filter seemed like it would reduce false signals. Skipping trades after losses seemed like protecting capital. Sizing up after wins seemed like capitalizing on momentum. Each individual decision had logic behind it. But logic in isolation doesn't equal strategy in aggregate. Twin B was essentially trading a different system every week. They started with System A. Then they added a filter, so now it's System B. Then they changed position sizing rules, so now it's System C. They kept creating new variations without ever giving any single version enough repetitions to prove itself. They were A/B testing in production with real money, and the result was chaos disguised as optimization. Twin A, on the other hand, understood something profound. The system doesn't need improvement, it needs repetition. An edge only reveals itself over sample size. And if you're constantly changing variables, you're resetting the sample size to 0 every time. You never get to see if the system actually works because you never give it a chance to work. That's the discipline lesson. Discipline isn't about suffering through a bad system. It's about giving a tested system enough unchanged repetitions that the math can express itself. And that requires you to resist the urge to improve, to optimize, to make it better. Because better is the enemy of consistent. And consistent is what wins. Discipline in trading is like training for a marathon. Your strategy is your training plan. The schedule that says, run X miles on these days, rest on those days, do speed work here, long runs there. And here's the thing. That training plan doesn't have to be the world's most optimized plan. It just has to be good enough and followed consistently. You could have an Olympic-level training plan designed by the best coaches, but if you only follow it when you feel like it, if you skip runs when you're tired, add extra miles when you're feeling good, ignore rest days, you're not going to finish the marathon. You might not even make it to race day without injury. Or you could have a decent plan, nothing special, and follow it religiously, every run, every rest day, every boring, unglamorous mile, and you'll finish the marathon. Not because your plan was superior, but because you executed it completely. Most traders are like runners who spend all their time researching the perfect training plan and zero time actually running consistently. They're debating interval strategies and optimal shoe technology while never building the habit of showing up every day and doing the work. And then they wonder why they're not ready for race day. The marathon doesn't care how good your plan is. It only cares whether you did the training. And the market doesn't care how good your strategy is. It only cares whether you executed it consistently over enough trades for the edge to materialize. Strategy is the plan, discipline is the training. And you can't win without both. But if you have to choose which one to prioritize, always choose discipline, because you can adjust a mediocre plan as you go. But you can't execute any plan if you're not showing up. And let me tell you what happens to the runner who keeps changing training plans. They run with plan A for 2 weeks. It's hard. They're sore. They're not seeing results yet. So they switch to plan B. They run with that for 10 days. Still hard, still sore, still no visible results. So they switch to plan C. They keep hopping from plan to plan, always looking for the one that feels easier or shows faster results. And 6 months later, they haven't improved at all. Not because none of the plans worked, but because they never stuck with any plan long enough for it to work. That's you with trading strategies. You're plan hopping. You're looking for the strategy that doesn't have drawdowns, that doesn't require patience, that doesn't ask you to trade when you're scared, and that strategy doesn't exist. So, you keep searching, and the searching itself is what prevents you from ever succeeding. Because success doesn't come from finding the perfect plan. It comes from executing an imperfect plan perfectly. So if discipline is more important than strategy, if execution beats optimization every time, what are the actual principles that make discipline possible? And why do most traders get this backwards? Here's what most traders don't understand. Your strategy doesn't change, but your ability to execute it does. Your edge is the same on day 1 as it is on day 100. The math doesn't change. The probabilities don't shift. But you change. Your emotional state, your confidence, your fear, your greed. And those changes determine whether you can actually execute the strategy. This is why two people with the same system get different results. The system is constant. The human is variable. And discipline is the mechanism that keeps the variable human executing the constant system despite internal changes. When you're feeling confident, discipline means not sizing up just because you feel invincible. When you're feeling scared, discipline means not reducing size just because you feel vulnerable. When you're on a winning streak, discipline means not abandoning your process in favor of feeling the flow. When you're on a losing streak, discipline means not abandoning your process in favor of something must be wrong. Strategy tells you what to do in the market. Discipline tells you what to do with yourself. And what to do with yourself is harder because yourself is unpredictable. The market is probabilistic, but within defined parameters. You are probabilistic with infinite parameters. Your moods, your sleep, your stress, your ego, all variables that affect execution but have nothing to do with the edge itself. This is why optimizing strategy has diminishing returns, but building discipline has compounding returns. Strategy reaches a ceiling. There's only so good an edge can be within the constraints of reality. But discipline can always improve. And every incremental improvement in discipline amplifies your strategy's effectiveness exponentially. Think about it mathematically. If you have a strategy with 0.5 R expectancy, and you execute it with 50% discipline, your actual expectancy is 0.25 R. If you improve your strategy to 0.7 R expectancy, but your discipline stays at 50%, your actual expectancy is 0.35 R. Small improvement. But if you keep your strategy at 0.5 R and improve your discipline to 90%, your actual expectancy jumps to 0.45 R. Much bigger improvement. And if you get your discipline to 100%, you're at 0.5 R, which is better than the improved strategy with poor discipline. The math is clear. Discipline is the higher leverage variable. Yet most traders obsess over strategy improvement because it feels like progress. They can see it. They can backtest it. They can feel smart doing it. But discipline improvement is invisible. It's just you showing up and doing the boring work of execution. It doesn't feel like progress, even though it's the only thing that actually moves the needle. Most people think discipline means suffering, forcing yourself to do painful things, white-knuckling through discomfort. That's not discipline. That's self-torture. And it's not sustainable. You can't willpower your way through thousands of trades. Willpower depletes. It's a limited resource. Real discipline isn't about forcing in the moment. It's about deciding before the moment, so there's nothing to force. It's pre-commitment. You decide your stop placement before you enter. You decide your position size before you see the opportunity. You decide how many trades you'll take before emotions are involved. And then when the moment arrives, you're not making a decision, you're executing a decision that's already been made. This is the difference between discipline as suffering and discipline as structure. Suffering says, I really want to move my stop, but I'll force myself not to. Structure says, my stop is at this price. That decision was made when I was rational. I'm just executing it now. One requires constant willpower. The other requires none. The traders who have sustainable discipline aren't gritting their teeth through every trade. They've removed the decision points. They've automated what can be automated. They've built systems that make the right action the easiest action. And deviation, while still possible, requires active effort rather than passive drift. That's the secret. You're not trying to build the willpower to resist temptation. You're trying to build the structures that make temptation irrelevant. And when temptation is irrelevant, discipline becomes effortless, not because you're stronger, but because you've made the game easier to win. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you struggle with moving your stops. You set a stop, price approaches it, and you move it further away, hoping the trade will recover. That's a discipline breakdown. Now, the willpower approach says you need to be stronger, tougher, more committed. You need to force yourself not to move the stop when the urge arises. And maybe that works once or twice. But eventually, willpower fails. It always does. The structural approach says, okay, why am I tempted to move the stop? Because I'm watching the trade in real time and the pain of the impending loss is overwhelming. So, the solution isn't to be tougher. It's to remove myself from the situation where I'm watching in real time. Set the stop as a hard order with the broker. Make it impossible to move without taking explicit action. Or better yet, set the stop and walk away. Don't watch the trade, check back at the end of the day. Now, moving the stop requires effort. You have to log in, find the order, manually adjust it. That friction is enough to prevent most impulse moves. You've made the right behavior, leaving the stop alone, the path of least resistance, and you've made the wrong behavior, moving the stop, require active effort. That's structural discipline. You're not fighting yourself. You're designing the environment so yourself doesn't need fighting. Every strategy has a hidden cost that most traders never calculate: the psychological cost of execution. A strategy might be profitable mathematically, but if the psychological cost of executing it exceeds your capacity, it's the wrong strategy for you. Not because it doesn't work, because you can't work it. For example, a mean reversion strategy that requires you to buy when everything looks terrible and sell when everything looks great. Mathematically sound, psychologically brutal. If you can't stomach buying into fear and selling into greed, that strategy will destroy you no matter how good the edge is. Or a trend-following strategy that requires you to sit through large drawdowns and watch profits evaporate before they compound. Mathematically optimal. Psychologically excruciating. If you're someone who needs frequent validation, you'll exit early every time. And early exits kill trend-following systems. The lesson is this: you need to match your strategy's discipline requirement to your actual discipline capacity, not your ideal capacity, your actual capacity. And if there's a mismatch, you have two options: build your capacity until it matches the requirement, or find a strategy with a requirement that matches your current capacity. Most traders do neither. They pick strategies that look good on paper without considering whether they can actually execute them, and then they blame the strategy when their lack of capacity becomes obvious. But it's not the strategy's fault. It's a mismatch between what the strategy asks and what you can deliver. I've seen traders pick high-frequency scalping strategies because the win rate looks attractive. 80% win sounds great. But what they don't consider is that scalping requires you to make dozens of decisions per day, each one critical, with no time to deliberate. If you're someone who needs time to process, who second guesses, who ruminates, scalping will destroy you. Not because the strategy doesn't work, but because your psychological makeup can't support the execution speed required. Or they pick swing trading strategies that hold positions for days or weeks. Sounds relaxing. Less screen time. But if you're someone who needs constant stimulation, who can't tolerate uncertainty, who checks their phone every 20 minutes to see what the position is doing, swing trading will drive you insane. You'll exit early. You'll override the plan. You'll manage yourself into losses that the strategy was designed to avoid. The point is, strategy selection isn't just about math. It's about self-awareness. What are your actual psychological capacities? What kind of execution can you sustain? And does the strategy you're attracted to require capacities you don't have? If yes, either build the capacity or find a different strategy. Don't just ignore the mismatch and hope willpower will carry you through. It won't. Let me give you the math that changes everything. Imagine strategy A has an expected value of 1.5 R per trade. That means, on average, every trade should make you 1.5 times your risk. That's excellent, but you can only execute it with 70% discipline. You take 70% of the signals, you honor 70% of your stops, you hit 70% of your targets. Your actual expectancy becomes 1.5 R times 0.7, which is 1.05 R. Still positive, but barely. Now imagine strategy B has an expected value of 1 R per trade. Not as good mathematically, but you can execute it with 100% discipline. Every signal, every stop, every target. Your actual expectancy is 1 R times 1, which is 1 R. You're making more with the worst strategy executed perfectly than with the better strategy executed imperfectly. And it gets worse. Because imperfect discipline isn't random, it's biased. You skip signals after losses, which means you miss winners. You move stops when losing, which means you take bigger losses. You take profits early when winning, which means you cut winners. All of these biases reduce expectancy below the theoretical. So strategy A, executed with typical undisciplined human behavior, might actually be negative expectancy despite being theoretically profitable. This is why discipline always beats strategy. Because discipline is the multiplier. And if your multiplier is less than 1, even the best strategy produces losses. But if your multiplier is 1 or greater, even a mediocre strategy produces profits. The math is ruthless. Execution quality determines results more than edge quality. Always. And I need you to sit with this because it's counterintuitive. We're wired to think that better tools produce better results. Better ingredients make better food. Better materials make better buildings. So better strategy should make better trading results. But trading isn't manufacturing. Trading is performance. And in performance, the quality of execution matters more than the quality of the script. A mediocre actor can ruin a brilliant script. A brilliant actor can elevate a mediocre script. The script matters, yes, but the performance is what the audience experiences. And in trading, you're both the scriptwriter and the actor. And most traders spend all their time rewriting the script and zero time rehearsing the performance. They think if they can just get the script perfect, the performance will take care of itself. It won't. The performance is a separate skill. And it's the skill that actually determines whether the audience, the market, rewards you. So you understand why discipline beats strategy. But how do you actually build the kind of discipline that sustains? What are the practical steps that move this from concept to reality? Before you change your strategy, audit your discipline. Go through your last 50 trades and score each one. Did you take every signal your system generated? Did you honor every stop exactly where it was set? Did you exit at your predetermined target or trail? Create a discipline score, percentage of trades where you executed perfectly. If your discipline score is below 80%, your problem isn't strategy. Stop looking for new systems and start building execution consistency. And be honest in this audit. Don't rationalize. Don't give yourself credit for close enough. Either you followed the rule or you didn't. Binary scoring. Because anything else lets you off the hook. If your rule says exit at 2R and you exited at 1.8R, that's a discipline failure. Not a huge one, but a failure nonetheless. Because if you can't follow the rule when it's inconsequential, you definitely can't follow it when it matters. Most traders lie to themselves in these audits. They say, well, I moved the stop, but it was the right move because the trade would have stopped out anyway. That's rationalization. It doesn't matter if it was the right move. What matters is, did you follow your predetermined rule? If not, it's a discipline failure. Track it, own it, and figure out why you felt the need to override. Before every trading session, write down your exact plan. What signals you'll take, where stops will go, what position size you'll use, then sign it, literally, and timestamp it. This document is your contract with future you. When future you is emotional and wants to deviate, this contract is what you default to. It's not a guideline. It's a legal agreement between rational you and emotional you. And emotional you doesn't get to renegotiate just because feelings changed. I can't stress this enough. The act of writing it down and signing it creates psychological commitment. It's no longer just a vague intention. It's a documented promise. And humans have an innate aversion to breaking documented promises. We'll break vague intentions all day long, but a written, signed commitment? That has weight. That creates resistance to deviation. And when you're in the trade and you want to override, you have to physically look at that document. You have to read your own words, see your own signature, and consciously decide to violate your own contract. That friction is often enough to stop the override. Not always, but often. And even when it's not, you've at least made the violation conscious rather than automatic. And conscious violations are easier to learn from than automatic ones. Don't try to build discipline under maximum pressure. Build it in simulation or with minimal position sizes first. Take your strategy. Trade it with micro size or in demo for 1 month. No deviations. None. If you can't execute perfectly when nothing's on the line, you definitely can't when everything is. Master mechanical execution when it's easy, then scale up. Discipline is a skill. You don't learn it in crisis. You practice it in calm. This is where most traders go wrong. They want to start with real money, full size, right away. Because demo doesn't feel real. Micro size doesn't feel meaningful. They want the rush. They want the validation of real profits. But they're skipping the foundational training that makes long-term success possible. Think about any other performance skill. Musicians don't perform at Carnegie Hall on day one. They practice scales. Athletes don't compete in the Olympics without years of training. Surgeons don't operate on patients without practicing on cadavers and simulations. But traders? Traders want to jump straight to performance. And then they wonder why they fail. Build your discipline in low-stakes environments first. Prove to yourself that you can follow rules mechanically when there's no emotional charge. And only after you've demonstrated that consistency, after you've built the neural pathways that make execution automatic, do you scale up. This isn't wasting time. This is investing time in the foundation that everything else depends on. Every time you deviate from your plan, every time you move a stop, skip a signal, size differently, log it immediately, write down what you did and why you thought it was justified. Review this log weekly. You'll see patterns. You'll see that the same emotional justifications keep appearing. And you'll see that most overrides lead to worse outcomes than following the plan would have. This data breaks the illusion that your deviations are improvements. The override log is powerful because it forces you to confront your patterns. Right now, your overrides probably feel random. Each one feels unique, justified by the specific circumstances of that moment. But when you log them, when you read back through weeks of overrides, you'll see it's the same 3 or 4 patterns repeating. You always move stops when you're down more than you expected. You always skip signals after 2 consecutive losses. You always size up after big wins. And once you see the pattern, once you recognize that your overrides aren't intelligent adaptations but mechanical responses to emotional triggers, you can address them. You can build specific interventions for each pattern. If you always move stops when down more than expected, you can pre-commit to stepping away from the screen when that happens. If you always skip signals after losses, you can build a rule that forces a 5-minute pause and reevaluation of criteria before deciding not to take a signal. Stop measuring success by profit and loss. Start measuring by execution quality. Create a daily scorecard. Did I follow my plan today? Yes or no? A day where you lost money but followed your plan perfectly is a 10 out of 10. A day where you made money but violated your rules is a 3 out of 10. This rewires your reward system. You're celebrating process, not outcome. And process is what you control. Outcome is just variance expressing itself over your process. This is the hardest shift for most traders to make, Because your brain is wired to care about outcome. Money is a powerful reinforcer. Wins feel good, losses feel bad. And your brain wants to optimize for feeling good. But feeling good and trading well are often inversely correlated. The trades that feel best to take are usually the worst trades. The exits that feel most comfortable are usually premature. The overrides that feel justified are usually destructive. So you have to actively recondition your reward system. You have to train yourself to feel good about process adherence regardless of outcome. And the scorecard does that. Every day, you score yourself on execution. And over time, you'll start to notice something. The days you score yourself highly on execution quality are, in aggregate, more profitable than the days you score yourself poorly. Not every day, but over time, the correlation becomes clear. And that correlation reinforces the new value system. Process equals profit. Outcome is noise. So here's where we've been. You came here thinking you needed a better strategy. But what we've uncovered is that strategy is rarely the problem. Execution is. Discipline is. The ability to do what the system says when it's uncomfortable, boring, or terrifying is what separates profitable traders from everyone else. We talked about the tale of two twins, same strategy, opposite results, because one had discipline and one had interference. We explored the marathon runner metaphor, how having a decent plan and following it beats having a perfect plan and ignoring it. And we broke down why discipline is dynamic while strategy is static, why discipline is pre-commitment rather than deprivation, why every strategy has a hidden psychological cost, and why imperfect strategy with perfect discipline beats perfect strategy with imperfect discipline every single time. The practices: auditing discipline before strategy, building pre-trade contracts, practicing in low-stakes environments, creating override logs, measuring execution quality over profit and loss. They all point to one truth. Discipline isn't about being tough. It's about being honest with yourself, building structures that support execution, and valuing process over outcome. Here's your mantra. Say it before every trading session. My strategy is tested. My job is execution. I don't need to be smart. I need to be consistent. I don't need to be right. I need to be faithful to my process. Discipline isn't suffering. It's pre-commitment. And pre-commitment is how I win. Listen, you're going to be tempted to search for better strategies. You're going to see new indicators, new patterns, new systems that promise to make everything easier. And the truth is, no strategy makes discipline unnecessary. Every strategy requires you to execute when it's hard, when you're scared, when you're confident, when nothing makes sense. That requirement never goes away. But here's the good news. Discipline is a skill. It's not a personality trait you're born with. It's something you build through practice, through structure, through honest self-assessment. And every time you execute your plan when you don't want to, you're building that skill. Every time you honor your stop when everything in you wants to move it, you're getting stronger. Not morally stronger, structurally stronger. If this landed for you, if you recognize that your strategy is probably fine and your discipline is what needs work, if you're ready to stop searching for the Holy Grail system and start building the habits that let any system work, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Drop a comment and tell me what's one rule you know you should follow but keep breaking. And subscribe, because we're building the foundation that makes long-term profitability possible. You've got this, not because you'll find the perfect strategy, but because you're finally ready to execute imperfect strategies perfectly. And that's the only edge that matters. I'll see you in the next one.